So my MR2 Turbo build was going a bit too smoothly for it to be one of our own cars. For anyone that is new to the channel, this is the most recent project, my 1992 MR2 Turbo import with about 84k miles on the clock. Now we bought this car with a few known issues, i.e. the clutch was absolutely gone out its brain, and when we took it out of the car we found out that it was actually true, it was smooth as anything. It had a horrible misfire, and that was due to the ignition leads being put in wrong. Changed all them over, ran fine. But now if anyone knows what should be here, they'll understand the actual reason what's wrong with this car. Now the thing that makes an MR2 Turbo an MR2 Turbo is one of these, a turbocharger. We took this car out on test drive and we realised it had zero boost. It has an Apex boost controller installed in the car and it has a live boost graph. That wasn't moving at all. I thought, okay, maybe a dodgy boost controller. And then the boost gauge in the middle of the clocks also wasn't moving. And we also had no boost. So then we got to diagnosing the actual fault of the turbo. Before I talk to you about what's actually wrong with the turbo, basically if you are planning to do this job yourself, it's not as hard. Once you take the cover off and the manifold, everything, all that off, it's all quite straightforward. You just got to remember this car is 33 years old. All the bolts are tight, and we actually snapped 2 manifold bolts down there. Don't know if the camera picks that up, that out of a torch. Is what it is, but we managed to drill them out and change them. Now, going over the actual turbo itself. So the turbo is made up of a few different things. Now, obviously when checking them, you want to check that the propeller is free, there's no plate in the actual bearing of the turbo and it spins freely. That's a good thing. And it's also the same on the other side. You got a free floating shaft in the middle of it. When you pull them, if you take the car and you move them, it might have a tiny bit of wiggle room. That's because there's no oil in the turbo, obviously, but when there's oil you won't have any of it. You have an actuator that basically opens the wastegate on the other end of the downpipe to let boost out and hold boost in. Now this is what actually was wrong with this one. This is now an OEM one compared to the forge actuator that we took off the car. This one is now good. It was C-stuck, but now we've got this one in and it's great. The way we tested it, we had a sucker and we put it up to 16 psi. That one didn't move at all. We then put this one on to 16 psi. It was moving nice and free. Now this is actually off a Rev 3 turbo. This one's a Rev 2 turbo. Differences is this one's a 48mm turbo, the same on the GT4 and the Supras, whereas the Rev 1 and normally the Rev 2s have a 42mm turbo. So this is 6mm bigger than it should be. But as you can see, this is how I took the turbo. I took it all out in one go. The manifold, the downpipe and the turbo itself. Didn't even have to touch the actual turbo bolts holding it onto the manifold. That was sweet. Just make sure all the seals and gaskets are somewhere safe and you know where they are, because you don't want to lose them. Because if you put it back together without them on, you'll know. But you don't particularly have a whole lot of room to actually mess about with this car. Now obviously in this video I'm going to show you how I took it off to some extent and put it back on. So if I haven't showed you how I took it off or what I took off the car, I'll show you when I'm putting it back on, if that makes a bit of sense. It should make sense. I hope it makes sense. So first thing to do is locate where the turbo is. On the MR2s, I'm on the back of the engine, GT4s in the front. See exactly what you need to take off, get the sizes you need. Top tip, most things I'm 14 and 12s on these cars. Take the bracket off for the intake pipe, the one that's connecting the intake pipe to the actual engine itself. This will let you get to the top 2 bolts on the heat shield a lot easier than if it was there. After that, take the heat shield off. It's held in by 3 bolts, 2 on the top underneath the bracket, 1 on the back of the engine. Now bear in mind, a lot of these bolts snap very easily, and if they don't snap they could be rounded. So luckily for me it was neither. They came off actually alright. To be fair, they were just a bit tight, but with a bit of persuasion they cracked loose, got them off, and then struggled for about 15 minutes trying to take this heat shield off because it didn't want to separate from the turbo. It was like it was in love with it. Then you are greeted with everything you need: the 9 manifold bolts, the pipes to the turbo, the coolant and oil pipes to the turbo, everything you need. Here you don't need to do this. I started disconnecting the downpipe from the turbo. You just take it all out as one. Don't bother doing it because it's a lot harder. After I realised, I started disconnecting the actual intake pipe from the car, connect to the turbo, got a blow-off valve, it's connected on the other side. Just get rid of the 2 pipes and the blow-off valve, and that just comes out nice and easy. The blow-off valve is a seal as well. Don't lose the seal, otherwise you'll leak air. Don't do it, just keep it safe. Top tip: when removing bolts like this and they make snappy sounds like this, all you want to do is keep going backwards and forwards, cleaning up the thread, spraying some WD on it. It's a long process obviously, but believe me, this is a lot quicker than having to drill that stud out, get a new thread, find the bolt, all that stuff. It's just, this is the best way to do it. All I'm doing is cleaning up the threads, making it nice. The best way I found of actually doing this whole job is a 1/2 inch impact sockets and a bit of muscle, and with persuasion everything comes off eventually. 7 out of the 9 came off like that, just 2 snapped, but again, it's an old car, you can't expect everything to go the way you want it to go on this. Furthermore, the 3S GT engine being one of the most ridiculous engines to actually work on, it's a very hard engine to use and work on, believe me. If anyone has done this job at home, on the ramp or whatever, let me know how you lot found this job in the comments as well, because this is the first time I've ever done a turbo on this car and I'm hoping it's the last. But I want to see what you guys think of this job, whether it's easy or ridiculously hard. Another tip: remove the oil filter, plug the oil filter hole as well so nothing goes in. It helps you get the bottom 2 bolts a lot easier. Once the manifolds disconnecting the pipes, disconnect the downpipe from the rest of the exhaust and disconnect the oil cooler. Be very careful with the oil cooler as it is very fragile and it can bend, and they're expensive as well, and they're expensive and hard to find. Then 8 hours later and a bit of editing, the turbo, downpipe and the manifold, I'm all out the car on the bench ready to be stripped down. Disconnecting the oil and coolant pipes from the actual turbo itself allows me to actually take the actuator off. These bolts are prone to snapping, just be careful with them, you'll be fine. And with that off, this is the difference between the Forge actuator and the OEM Rev 3 actuator. The Forge one is massive, but unfortunately it had failed because it would have been cool to keep on the car. Then line up the actuator, get that all in place, and then watch me struggle quite a lot trying to put this pipe back onto the turbo. Everything with this car requires persuasion, believe me. If you think you're going to do something on this car within 5 minutes, you're not. It's everything on this car has been second attempt for me. But persuasion is on. Make sure the actuator then lines up to the holes, and then everything's sweet. Make sure these pipes are tight to make sure you've got the gasket on, because realistically you don't want to be leaking oil and coolant that's meant to be going into your turbo. Now at this point, just make sure nothing is trapped. Line up the holes for the actuator and the actual turbo. Start them, tighten them. This is where I figured how hard it was to record with one hand and then fit a bolt, tighten the bolt with the other hand. It's actually very tricky. Just make sure they're all tight. Don't snap the bolts tightening them because that would be silly. Make sure that the actual actuator is connected to the wastegate. Essentially, we took the downpipe off to check if the wastegate had been banging across the downpipe because it's aftermarket anyway. Some of the cheap ones this happens, but there was actual no signs of it hitting the downpipe, so we knew that side of it was fine. And the wastegates don't normally fail on these turbos, so I've been told. But with that being said, we're past like the whole stripping part, and now we just have to do everything we have done but reverse. Everything is now tight. The third hole in is actually a blank, there's no bolt that goes there. Then connect the downpipe, what's also tricky because one bolt likes to try and be funny. It's a challenge putting this downpipe on and actually tightening it, believe me. Today, very wet, very cold. These cars are not great in the dry. These cars aren't great in the wet. They like to snap in the dry even. So when it's raining in this beautiful England fashion, makes it a very, very, very unsafe car to drive. A lot of the problems now have been cured with this car. It's actually driving somewhat right. Obviously we've got boost, not a whole lot of boost though. I don't think it's 14 psi. The boost controller is not set up, but the gears absolutely beautiful. Got to still sort the gear knob out. One pull, that's it. That's all you can get in for this. It's too wet, it's too dangerous. It's actually quite scary, to be honest. Banging its nuts off on the rear right, I believe. I've had it on the ramp. It's been on the ramp for a bit, trying to figure it out. I can't find it at all, but the way it's rattling, it should be a pretty easy find. But it's not. What's a bit alarming for me, it doesn't drone either, in all fairness. To say it's got a really loud exhaust, you've obviously heard the exhaust. It doesn't drone at all, what's great. The rev meters don't work in the clock still, but the speedometer does. The odometer as well does. The temperature gauge and the fuel gauge also work. So it's only the rev limiter and the trip doesn't work, but the important one does work, the speedometer, so that's all right. Got to freshen up the steering wheel as well at some point. Got to actually reset up the boost controller, because I did factory wipe the boost controller thinking, oh, I've got no boost because this has been set up wrong. I was wrong. Obviously the actuator had failed on the turbo, meaning that's the reason why. It's polybushed all around. Obviously my dad's is a Rev 1 and his drive's so nice. Compared to this is like a bit of a pig, I'll be real. With all the UK roads and how horrible UK roads are, and obviously the weather. I'm not really painting a good picture for the UK if you're not from the UK. So, but if you am thinking of moving to the UK, damn it, the UK is terrible, trust me. Handbrake actually holds as well. I still always leave the car in gear, but it's not a bad handbrake, to be honest. So it's quite shocking. I've got to let it cool down. There's no turbo timer in this car. I would like to get one fitted. Essentially this turbo is a water cooled turbo, so once you make the turbo work, obviously turbos get very hot and you need the water to go through, just cool that turbo down a bit. Preserves the life of the turbo, you know, limits the wear. It's self-explanatory, it's a turbo timer. When you park your car up, you set how long you want and you just let it run, or you then go up into the house and do what you want. I've got to do something with this because this just spins and it kind of comes out in your hands when driving, because it did come with this one, this D1 spec. Well, it's got a lot of weight to it, but I didn't like it, and it's a lot bigger as well. So this one's a lot nicer, it's short, it's stubby. Overall a lot nicer. This is a genuine Rev 2 one, and these are actually quite expensive to get a decent one. And it's got the black stitching as well, whereas most of the ones now have the red stitching around it. So that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy the build of the MR2, I'm sure it's not the last time I'll be recording myself fixing this car. There's still a couple other issues that need to be sorted out eventually. But the main priority at the minute is getting it running, driving like a normal car and how a normal car should drive, and then we'll get onto the boring miscellaneous stuff in the future. But as of now, the car's running right, it's boosting sort of right. In this video it was about 6 or 7 psi. We've now got it running normal 13-14 psi, I believe. So next video of this car will be me a POV drive of it, so then I can obviously show the full potential of the car in that video when it is all fixed and sorted. But yeah, as always, I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Please hit the like and subscribe, as it means a lot for me. Hit the bell as well so you don't miss an upcoming video, and also comment what you want to see next on this channel so I can try my best to get it out for you. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.